That's Richard.
Try cell phones? Yeah. Our regular phone.
So did you see that I put vice chair there?
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the November 19th meeting of the Post Falls Urban Renewal Commission. Director Lane, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Carstensen?
Here.
Crosby?
Aye.
Malzahn?
Here.
Commissioner Rehrman is not present yet, nor is Commissioner Coles present yet. And Commissioner Davis?
Here.
And me?
And Commissioner Baltzell?
Here.
Chairman Baltzell.
Okay, thank you. We do have a quorum. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, again, good morning, everyone. Do we have any ceremonies, appointments, or announcements this morning? Do you have anything you want to say? No. Okay, looks like there is none at this time. Any conflict disclosures that any of the commissioners would like to make on any subject on the agenda this morning? I see none. Let's move on into the consent calendar. Director Lane.
Yes, good morning, Chairman Baltzell and Commissioners. Item A in the consent calendar this morning is the Commission meeting minutes from October 15th, 2015. Item B is the payables for the month totaling $902,540.95. The significant payables include pay request number 16 to R.L. Wadsworth for $833,683.64, and also $45,038.57 to JUB Engineering on the Overpass project. And those will be funded by an $879,064.21 draw on our loan at Washington Trust Bank. And that also includes a small legal expense item. Item C in the bank activity report shows total funds in all accounts of $2,933,482.15 and accrued interest for the month of $2,902.56. Item F is the financial reports as of October 31st that are printed from our QuickBooks accounting system, and they will be posted to our website as usual. Your approval of the consent calendar this morning will authorize the transfer of $2,902.56 accrued interest to the general fund, and also transfer to the INB checking account of $902,540.95 for general payables. And I would answer any questions, Chairman.
Are there any questions on the consent calendar from the commissioners?
Chairman, just a point of clarification, and Mr. Lean and I discussed this with the RAI, your confirmation that $750 of that bill is for annual dues for the upcoming year, and $750 is for legislative activities, lobbying?
Lobbying is a term of...
What is legislative
It's
activities?
legislative
I guess
activities.
I did ask the question. What does legislative activities mean?
That is to our contribution to the cost of the legal firm in Boise that provides legal services for the RAI, Redevelopment Association of Idaho, in their review of legislation, proposed legislation. They provide review of that, and the Board of Commissioners of the RAI take that review and provide other information to the various legislative committees.
So that
But it's-
that law firm does not testify on behalf of RAI?
They do. They
So that
provide
is-
both review and they will testify.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. My other question, Chairman, has to do, and this was the subject of an email I sent Mr. Lean on Tuesday, has to do with the Greensferry Overpass application. I could not reconcile that. In other words, we show a balance to we show a retainage of $497,031, and we show a balance to finish after the current proposed draw of $833,683, including that retainage of $77,613. That would indicate that the hard costs remaining to be paid are $880,582. That's the balance less the retainage. However, when I did a total on the balance to finish, which is the second portion of that memorandum, I came up with $913,916 for each of the line items. So I asked in the email that that be reconciled.
Yes, and later yesterday afternoon, I was able to look at that. The difference is $33,334, and that's the amount of the Citizen Review Board, the potential award, the bonus incentive award to the general contractor. That, because that amount had not been, we had not fully awarded that at the time this report was prepared, that is a possible amount, but not firm as of that time.
Okay. Thank you. That
And that's not,
clarifies.
also, that's not a hard dollar construction cost. That's part of the incentive
Sure.
award.
Anybody else have any questions? Very good question, very good answer. Thank you
Good
very much.
question.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented and further explain.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Carstensen,
Aye.
Crosby,
Aye.
Malzahn,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
and Baltzell.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, committee updates. Finance and Policy, Commissioner Crosby, do you have anything current?
Yes, Commissioner Malzahn completed the Finance Committee review of the third quarter bank statements and reconciliations and found no discrepancies, except an issue of inputting a bank fee that is typically charged by IMB and then reversed into the QuickBooks so that it reconciles with the bank statement. So he made that recommendation, and staff said they would
Very
take care
good.
of that. Thank you, Commissioner Malzahn.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Coles is not here. Does anybody have anything new on district review at this time? I think we're still waiting for the Mets group to complete their work on our overall review of our districts, so we'll move on from there. Communications, Property, and Personnel, Commissioner Carstensen.
Well, on property, I guess this is a little different than normal, but the CRB committee that worked on Greensferry had their final meeting Tuesday, and where they did their awarding of the incentive, which I haven't heard the results of yet. And then we had the project team meeting Tuesday afternoon, which was a telephone communications, and that's the way we're going to do. If there's any more needed, we're just going to do it that way. We don't need to get together anymore. But the CRB, I think, did an excellent job to have them involved with input on Greensferry, the overpass. And certainly want to thank all them for their time and effort that they put into that. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that as the meeting goes on today.
Very good, thank you. Okay, citizen comments. I see we have some citizens out there, and this is the time reserved for citizens wishing to address the commission regarding an agency-related issue. Comments related to future public hearings should be held for that public hearing. Persons wishing to speak will have 5 minutes. And if you have other subjects already on the agenda you intend to address or whatever, you're welcome to save it for that if you like. Is there anyone that has any comments they would like to make at this time? Okay, seeing none, let's move on. We now have on the agenda call for a public hearing for FY 2015 second amended budget. If anyone wishes to speak and has not filled out a form yet, please do so now and give it to the Executive Director. Notice of the public hearing was published on November 11th and November 18th as required by Idaho Code Section 50-29035. And I now open the public hearing for comment. If there are no comments at this time, Director Lean, will you walk us through that, please?
Yes, Chairman Baltzell. I'll show on the overhead. Get this to zoom in a little bit here. The intent of the amended budget this time was based on communication, meeting with our CPA who's doing our audit. There's two forms of accounting and reporting that we need to comply with. One is government-wide accounting, which for most of us that are in the business world and banking, whatever, that's a standard accounting system. If you're in a government agency, they also have fund accounting, and it's two different types of reporting on the same numbers. So in essence, we're carrying two sets of books and reporting the same numbers. When we did the initial budget, it was based on government-wide accounting, and we added in the additional expense for the Greensferry project and Spencer Street project as expenditures for the year. At the beginning of the year, 14 months ago, when we did that budget originally, we didn't know what those numbers would be. We anticipated having to do an amendment to the budget. So we did that, and then we submitted everything. We started our audit, and our auditor came back and said, well, you did not include the payments of principal. If you look down here on other financing sources, we went from the 5.7 million up to 6.6 million, and that difference of the 924,000 was the principal payments. Our source of funds on that was the bank financing, and that bank financing covered. This is what we did not show in the original amended budget. We did not show as an expense the principal payments on those two loans, both the debt of 924,000, which matches this, and then the interest expense of 42,000. So because of that and that requirement to disclose those, we need to do a second amendment to the budget. Basically, that's it.
Okay,
if you have any other questions, I'll try to answer them.
And just for clarity, the bank principal payments are not principal payments that we make to the bank. They're payments that the bank made on our behalf for the expense of the bridge requirements.
That is correct, yes.
Anybody have any other?
Just for clarity purposes, because this is a pretty quick run-through, essentially, my understanding is that the auditors did not, we did not understand that we were supposed to reflect all income from debt and all expenses associated with debt. So that the only line items that changed, even if you go back to the original budget, are the fact that we borrowed money for Greensferry, we borrowed money for Spokane Street, and we borrowed money for Spencer Street, and we repaid part of that, which obviously impacted the expense section. So, and for the public's purpose, they can anticipate that the budget that we just approved for 2016, we will have to go back and amend at some point, because then, but we can't do that now because we don't know exactly how much debt we're going to take down and how much debt we're going to repay over a period of time. So this is a process that is transparent, and everybody should understand it. It's simply a matter of meeting the accounting regulations to reflect the fact that we borrowed money and we paid it back.
Excellent comment. Thank you.
And one other quick comment on that same thing. This is 2015 fiscal year is the first time we had borrowed any money for any kind of project, so this was a new process to us as well. And so now that we know what it is, we'll, as Len said, we'll be making adjustments in the FY 2016 budget later in the year once we have a handle, understand what those payments have been. So, any other questions? Anyone? Okay, no other questions. I will now close the public part of the hearing and open commissioner deliberations and action. If there's any further comments, questions, or discussion, this is the time to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the approval of the amended budget.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? We have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Carstensen,
Aye.
Crosby,
Aye.
Malzahn,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
and Balsell.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, now we'll go into the unfinished business portion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd recommend that there be a separate motion made to approve the resolution number
Yes.
2015-5.
Okay,
Thank you.
excuse me, I missed that piece.
That's right.
I read right past it. Want to make a motion for that?
I'd be happy to. I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2015-05.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none.
Let's do a voice vote.
Voice vote is okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. The resolution is adopted. Now we'll move into unfinished business. And the biggest item there, and probably only item this time, is the Greensferry Overpass. And we'd like an October expense update, total expense, and then the schedule, and probably some other comments.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The expense for the month of October was $880,589.21. That included the owner's rep, JUB, legal fees, and the design build team, RL Wadsworth. The total to date is $13,870,081.68. And we are, based on the last pay request that we just processed, we're over 95% complete on the project and on the funding. From a schedule standpoint, I'm really happy to, and I don't need to announce something that's unknown, we had the opening dedication ceremony last Thursday. It was very well attended. The 200 sixth graders that were there on a field trip from Post Falls Middle School, I almost lost them because there were so many other people there. I couldn't see them in the crowd. There's a lot more people than I had anticipated. It was a very well attended event. And from a schedule standpoint, we have some remaining items to be done on that project. Chris Dillman is here with us today. He's the construction supervisor, manager out there on the site. And I'd ask Chris to come up to the microphone, give his name and where he's from, and comment on what the remaining schedule looks like. And I think Mr. Carstensen, Commissioner Carstensen may have a word for Chris.
Yeah, I have a word as well. Why don't you come on up, Chris, if you're ready, and while you're just up to here, it'd be just great. I just want to say this guy is the guy on the ground at the bridge through the whole process, and how he kept all of that together, I have no idea, but he did. And everywhere you looked, north, south, on the bridge, under the bridge, there were pockets of people scurrying around doing stuff for the whole project. And he's the guy that kept his arms around all of that. And it's amazing to me that it came together like it did. You do a phenomenal job, and we're very fortunate to have had you on this project.
Thank you.
Now you can make your comments, and then I think Larry has something he'd like to say, don't you?
I can find something.
Yeah, he'll find something.
Well, we were excited to participate in that opening last week. Two quick thank yous. One to Larry for the idea of the permanent flag poles. I think they were a big success for the project and for the community at whole. And secondly, to Tom for his work in putting together that flag raising ceremony and making it more than just a ribbon cutting. So thank you to you gentlemen. As far as the remaining work, we do have the roadway open. We've got the sidewalks, all the pedestrian and bike facilities are functioning on Greensferry, Polston, Mullen, Celtice. We still have one section of sidewalk that'll be placed late this week, and some landscape irrigation, some aesthetics, some painting, and concrete staining, things that work will continue until probably the first or second week in December. When we lose temperatures and the ground starts to freeze, we'll need to suspend our operations for the landscaping, for the plantings and the irrigation repairs. And our staining and painting operation has been suspended already due to the weather and the temperatures. So again, we anticipate doing some cleanup. We've got some fence repair along I-90 to restore Idaho Department of Transportation's right-of-way fencing and get some grading performed there. And then we'll be here, but you won't see very much of us until probably 1st of April. We'll come in for 3 or 4 weeks, get our staining complete, get any remaining plantings, irrigation items performed, and at that point, hopefully, any warranty, or if we see any issues through this first winter season, we'll have an opportunity to make some quick repairs to that.
Okay.
So we have a walkthrough scheduled for the 1st of December, a punch list, a substantial completion walkthrough to ensure that everything necessary and needed is installed to carry us through until we can finalize the beautification in the spring.
Just one other quick comment, if I could, and that is, throughout this past year, there have been a variety of delays due to right-of-way acquisition and so on, which could easily have stopped the construction process. But Chris and his folks would move on to something else or make some kind of adjustments to what they were doing to make sure work continued, and that everything that was on site was kept busy doing some piece of it, even if they had to change a little bit of the schedule to allow for those delays. And that's what I think is really, really outstanding management on your part and of your crews, that were able to jump from place to place and make adjustments based on the slowdowns you weren't expecting. So my hat's off to you guys for that.
Thank you.
I too would like to thank RWL and the excellent job you did. I couldn't envision 2 years ago what this project was all going to encompass, and being on the project team and sitting in on all those meetings and kind of shaking your head and saying, what are we going to do next, you know? And then when you work with actually 4 entities, you got the city, URA, JUB, and RWL, and see it all pull together, and to see the people at the different meetings and how they functioned. And I'd say 99% positive. I was so impressed with your work when there was a concern from a community member or a CRB member, where they would call and every one of them would say you'd be there before the sunset, you know, and handle it. And that was what was so impressive to me, is that things weren't delayed and they weren't shoved aside, and you know, it wasn't like you had to go fishing that day or something. And like Jerry said, it seemed like everywhere you looked, your crew was down there doing something, you know. And as he indicated, the delays with right away it wasn't always pretty, but it always got done, and it always got done in a beneficial way, I think. And I don't know that if somebody wanted a letter or reference for the work you did, I'd certainly sign one. But for what that means on a $15 million project. But anyway, again, we really want to thank you and your company.
Thank
for
you.
The job you did.
Just maybe a couple more comments. One, I guess if we start with JUB, I think you made a fantastic selection on your program manager. They worked as hard as we did on making this project a success, and it was a pleasure to work with them, not because they allowed us to do what we wanted, but because as problems arise, they were always there trying to be part of the solution, not combative, not pointing fingers. It was always a positive meeting. So a thank you to JEB, I think, is well warranted. Secondly, it was a pleasure for Ralph Wadsworth to participate and be a member of this project team. It was a joy to come onto a project, and I've said this before, that was a true, I call it a grassroots project. It was a true community project, and I think the turnout last week showed that. And going to the bank or going to a restaurant and you speak to these people and how excited they are that the overpass is now open so that they can cut 5 minutes off of their commute, or they don't have to go to 41, whatever it is. It was a pleasure to do that, and it was a pleasure to work with the URA, and I hope that in the future we'll have opportunities again to help out.
Thank you.
Chairman, just one thing, I'd like to remind everyone that this is the second major improvement to our community's infrastructure that R.L. Wadsworth has been involved in. The first was Beck Road, and the second was Greensferry Overpass. And as you say, neither one of those was done with any state highway money or any federal highway money. It was all done with urban renewal assistance and the community's will and desire.
Yep.
Will there be any kind of traffic study done in the next couple of weeks to see? There's a lot of traffic on that roadway already, to see what kind of
that I
usage
don't
is
know.
getting.
That would be probably a better
Did he-
question for your program manager, JB. They would handle a traffic study such as that. I do know that it typically takes a couple months for a new roadway to get fully utilized. So expect to see it get busier as people realize that it's open and kind of get out of their old habit of turning right and going to the coffee shop, instead turning left and going over the overpass, So
They've been watching it for a long time, so
Yes,
I think
they
they're
have.
pretty anxious
Shouldn't
to
take
start
them
using
long,
it.
yeah.
If I may, an additional comment is, want to thank Wadsworth for the flagpoles. That was kind of an afterthought, when Memorial Day last year, when you put one up just for having a flag flying, and then we thought of the idea of putting it permanent and how you got that incorporated in there quickly. And then the other day at our final project team meeting, he comes in with a box of 24, 25,
24, yeah.
24 of the 5x8 flags that Wadsworth is donating to us for use on the bridge. I don't know where they ended up, but
Downstairs.
you got them upstairs, okay. So now it's our job to make sure that, or somebody's job, to make sure when the flags get tattered and torn, that they get replaced in a,
City will do that.
city will do that, in a speedy fashion, so to speak. But that was just the comments about that. I talked to somebody yesterday, Sal Tees, and he said that was the most impressive thing to him, was to see the flags flying on the overpass. So an additional thank you that wasn't in the original plan.
And I think that when you did that, it was in honor of the Coeur d'Alene police officer who was killed in the line of duty at that time, and the flag all of a sudden came up like it did all over our communities in North Idaho and Washington. And I think it was Mr. Carstensen who said, we need to do that forever,
Yep.
permanent, and he'd like two flags, one east and one west. And so I think there's several people involved in that process.
I think it was everybody that agreed that it needed to be done after seeing the single pole that you put out there for Memorial Day. And it just was so impressive, and people talk about that more than they talk about the overpass.
Yep, that they do.
There have been more positive, that is such a beautiful sight at night.
Yeah.
It is.
Driving either direction on the freeway, you see that, and it just kind of gets you right here, and brings out the patriotism within the people that see it, and so.
And they were tested Wednesday with the wind
That they were.
They're going to
So
want it.
we're,
Yeah, for sure.
So a special thank you on that one, and thanks for the, boy, I hope it's a couple years or so of flags that will be utilized out there, so.
Yep.
Well, I think all of us owe a round of applause to thank Chris and his staff at Wadsworth Construction for all the great work you did. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, new business. Tullamore Commons, order of approval of payment.
Yes, sir. Chairman Baltzell, November 2012, we executed an owner participation and reimbursement agreement with Tullamore Commons 2 LLC. And that is with Todd Prescott with Whitewater Creek Construction. They did work out in the Tullamore area, put in public infrastructure to the tune of about $363,484.57. And we had, we executed the OPA, Owner Participation Agreement, with them at that time. They submitted a reimbursement request. We have about 106 pages of invoices. This is our normal course of business. Those invoices were reviewed by our engineering firm, Welch Comer, Matt Gillis, who happens to be here today. He reviewed those for pricing, for standard pricing, unit quantities and everything, went out and looked at the project. We initially had committed to do match funding of $325,000. And that's the request for order of approval today for the $325,000, even though they did submit the $363,000. Our commitment was $325,000, so that's where we're going to stay. And so we're asking for approval of the agency order of approval for payment of this for reimbursement back to them.
Okay, any questions or discussion?
Chairman, I do have several questions. Obviously, one of my concerns is that this was approved by the commission in 2012, and it constitutes a reimbursement of some improvements that were done to assist in the development of a residential property, which is federally and state tax assisted. It's got federal and state tax credits. But that's irrelevant to this. My concern is that nowhere in this resolution do we say that this does not constitute debt. And as you know, under the current urban renewal regulations, an urban renewal agency can extend the life of a district if they have outstanding debt. If I look at the fact that we have only accrued $22,950 based on our financial statements in this district, and if I assume that we pay that amount out every year going forward, this obligation won't be discharged until 14 years, which is 7.5 years beyond the life of this district. So I am very concerned that this resolution is not sufficient. I would like to see it say it doesn't constitute debt on behalf of the agency, and that it is subject to and limited to the tax increment which will be received for this sub-district over the remaining term of the district, and is further limited by the commission's ability to close the district prior to that maturity date if it so chooses.
Chairman Baltzell, in the order of approval for payment, on the last paragraph, based upon these findings, we formally approve for reimbursement the amount of $325 to be paid from tax increment revenues in the East Post Falls Urban Renewal District as they become available to the agency and in accordance with agency policies. That being said, as they become available, if we don't have $325,000 that becomes available by the time the district closes, and the obligation is met at that time. And that, if you look at the agency policies, that is covered within our policies.
I would counter that with the argument that that is a very large district and it encompasses a huge amount of property. Now, it should be restricted to the tax increment coming from this specific sub-district. I mean, essentially what you're saying is if we pay off the Greensferry debt, we can't close this district until we reimburse this proponent for $325,000 with tax increment coming from other parts of the district, the way this is worded now.
The East Post Falls district comprises 3 sub-districts: the South District, Central, and North District. The North sub-district is actually the Tullamore district. The Greensferry Overpass and Spencer Street projects are both in the South and Central sub-district. So as the debt for those, as that debt is paid off, Washington Trust loan, we can amend the plan and close those, the South and the Central sub-district, and leave the North sub-district, Tullamore, open as a continuing district until the close of the district.
Not what this says. This says the East Post Falls Urban Renewal District. It is one district. The way it's worded in this resolution, it encompasses the entirety of the district. If it said the north portion, or if it said the Tullamore Commons carve-out of the north portion, I would be less concerned.
Okay, by agreement, also, we have in file agreements from when the property was, when the increment was transferred from the surviving bank at the time, because there was a foreclosure process. The tax increment that Tullamore Commons receives will be only from a single parcel, and that was outlined in a signed agreement.
Perfect. Let's put that in the resolution.
I don't know, I don't think it needs to be in the resolution because it's
I
in
can't
file.
vote for this
It's a matter of
resolution the
record.
way it is.
Allow you to interject here for a minute, please. Could we get our attorney's take on that, please, on the concerns and whether, because of the additional documentation that identifies where those dollars come from, is it necessary to change this resolution for clarity?
Mr. Chairman, it could be changed for clarity purposes. Legally, I don't think it's required. It's in the OPA. Basically, that if the district ends before this obligation's paid off, then that's a risk that the proponent takes. And I think they've acknowledged that on the record before in previous meetings. So, you know, resolutions and ordinances can always be made clearer. But I don't think it's a legal requirement in this case. You know, in the interest of clarity, it could be made, but my position is legally it doesn't have to be included in there since it's in the OPA already.
Okay, thank you. Other commissioners, please? Comments?
Well, I would recommend that we would just add that just for clarity if it's not going to hurt anything and legal counsel agrees that it's doable. I mean, I would recommend that we do that just to be completely clear and transparent.
Okay, so we can amend the document to show from East Post Falls Urban Renewal District, Sub-District, A, B, or C, whichever one it is, North District, however it's stated in the other documents. Is there, you're making a motion to that effect, that it be
I was just
amended?
making a comment.
Oh, just a
But
comment,
that's-
okay.
Chairman, if somebody cared to make a motion, could you make that motion approving this, subject to revising the language in that last paragraph, saying that to be paid from tax increment revenues in the East Post Falls
Sub-district.
sub-district, specifically from and identify the specific parcel, the source of that tax increment.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask if there's a real rush on this. If there's not, I think we could tweak the language in the resolution and talk about it at the workshop next month.
Sounds good.
And then
Why don't we
approve
do
it
that?
at the regular meeting.
Modify it and
We've been
bring it
waiting,
back
we've been
for
waiting on,
review.
we've been waiting on their submittals for
Yes,
forever,
sir.
so
Long
I think they
time.
can wait another month.
Okay.
Yeah, and the money is still in the bank, so to speak, and it
So
will be
should
there.
we, I'm sorry, Chairman, should we have a motion to not approve this, or should we simply table the matter?
I think a motion to table.
I'd move that we table this matter pending further clarification and a resolution embodying some of the concerns expressed by the commission.
Is there a second? There's moved and second. Do that by voice vote?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we're still in new business, and we'll move to the Spencer Street project status update. And Matt, were you wanting to address that? Matt Gillis from Welsh Comer? That's okay. Would you like to come forward, please?
Well, good morning, Commission. Matt Gillis, for those I haven't met yet, with Welch Comer Engineers. I am here to give you an update on your slightly less popular and less in the spotlight project, Spencer Street, but equally important. Perhaps I can assume that Tom has kept you up to date on the goings-on. He's at all of our meetings. But generally speaking, Spencer Street has gone incredibly smoothly. We're working with a great contractor. It's been really a collaborative effort between the URA, the city, and the contractor. Really, the most tense thing we had, honestly, was a bull moose on site, which it wasn't dangerous or anything, but there was some concern.
You're not talking about Commissioner Carstensen, are you?
No, sir. I wouldn't do that. So what has been completed to date is, I don't know if you've been to the site, but all the underground utilities are done, all the curbs done, the sidewalks done, all the asphalt's done. That was our big goal for the year, to get this thing paved. And fortunately, the weather allowed that. What we have yet to do this fall is there's some pavement markings we need to get done. And as this gentleman mentioned, temperature, it's very temperature sensitive. So we'll get some of them, the thermoplastic stuff, but not the paint stuff. We'll still get the Avista lights installed, the street lights. I'm trying to get an update out of Avista when they'll stand those. What we will do next year, after the new year, is the traffic signal. There's a long lead time on that equipment. It's not on site yet. We anticipate it in January, February. So I would assume that will be fired up in the spring. And then there'll be some final cleanup stuff and some hydroseed, just minimal things. So we're 98, 99% there right now. But your main question is probably, well, when's it going to open to traffic? Everybody on this campus has done everything that we can, but what our limit right now is the railroad, and I assume Tom's updated you. We're awaiting the railroad's crews to get on site to install their concrete planking. All the permits, all the easements, all the fees are paid, and we're ready for them. So as soon as that's in, we've accommodated them. We'll do a quick closure pour to make it passable, and then we are ready to open the street. We can open the street without the signal. Spencer and Celtice will just function as a stop. Celtice will be through, but Spencer there'll be a temporary stop sign there. From a budget standpoint, numbers are still rolling in, and the contractor has kind of deferred wanting to get paid till the very end. So we're still crunching those numbers, but I think we're going to be either at or under the original bid. So again, that's partly due to close cooperation with the contractor, which has been beneficial to the district. Can I answer any questions?
Good. Any questions? I can tell you that I know a number of people that live south of Celtice that are really anxious to use Spencer Street as an alternate way to get someplace, and so there's a lot of anxiety of people watching that, when is it going to open kind of thing, and so I think it's going to have its own level of excitement when we finally open that so they can use it, so thank you.
Yeah, and there probably will be some public questioning as to why is this not open, why is this not open, and sometimes the railroad moves at a different pace than we'd like to.
One question I had, when I drove around it, I noticed there were a number of curb cuts into private property. Were those, can you help me understand why we put those in?
Absolutely. So this project required right-of-way acquisition or property acquisition. from several properties. As part of those acquisition negotiations, utility services were stubbed into the properties and driveway approaches were constructed. That was part of the agreement. I don't remember how many exactly, but I think there's 3 or 4 on Spencer and maybe 2 on Third.
And that was also, I guess, part of those negotiations, all the sidewalk that we're putting in on Third?
Yes, you're referring to frontage improvements.
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Which is beyond Spencer Street.
Well, it was part of the entire scope of our project, but yes, the district agreed to construct those improvements as part of this project.
I see. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a clarification, that part that's outside of the Spencer Street, wasn't that paid for by the city?
Correct. So there is a stretch of Spencer between Second and Third, which is outside the URA's boundary. That portion has been, we've taken care of the accounting. There's 2 separate bid schedules, and that's funded by the city.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions on that? Very good, thank you for that. And you might as well stay up here, maybe make any comments about status of Spokane Street, lighting and
Absolutely,
things
if
of that
you'd like
nature
that, yes.
maybe people were wondering about.
I know there's been some justified concern about the lighting, okay? Again, I assume Tom's briefed you, but there were 2 primary issues with the Spokane street lights. One, the one I was most concerned about was the white street lights, okay? So there has been a considerable effort amongst the team, primarily the electrical contractor, to root out and follow a pretty rigid protocol to figure out what the issue was. We don't think it was a manufacturer issue. The electrical contractor, Kessner, which is they're the best at what they do, they systematically eliminated problems, right? And it's not easy work. It's not flipping a switch, and it's really only can be done at night when the lights are on. So they finally, I think as of last week, they narrowed it down to 3 lights, and those 3 lights kept tripping. Every 4 days, the breaker would flip, and we could not figure out why. So it was decided to, instead of, it was decided to take all the wiring out of those few lights and replace it. And so far, I think we've had about a week and a half or 2 weeks of no issues with the street lights flipping off, okay? Unless anybody's seen anything. I drive through every night and I haven't seen anything. The second issue is the blue accent lights, which is purely aesthetic, but very important, we agree. The manufacturer had said, well, yeah, every now and then there's some bad lights, and so they were sending 10 new lights. Well, while they were telling us this, they were finding out themselves, and this was their admission, that they had a defective, what's called a driver. And so in fluorescent lights, it used to be called a ballast. So the driver just takes power and converts it to what the light can use. I'm not an electrician, so that's my best explanation of it. Those were defective. So the manufacturer has volunteered, fortunately, they're going to replace every single one of the drivers in every single one of the blue lights, not just the ones that are out. So my understanding is those will be shipped. They're being tested right now to make sure, because they don't want this to happen again. And I believe they'll be shipped the first half of December. I don't have an exact date when they'll arrive, but when they do, Kessner and Cameron Riley, the prime contractor, will remobilize to the site at nobody's cost here except ultimately the manufacturer's cost. They'll have to fight that battle, and they'll replace all of the blue lights.
Okay.
Once that's done, I believe everything will be fine. We won't have any more outages.
Okay.
And I understand the frustration, and I assure you we've been doing everything we can to get it remedied.
Very good. Sounds good. Any other questions on Spokane Street? Well, once again, Matt, I want to thank you and all the folks at Welsh Comer for the great job you've done for us for years, and the close coordination that always takes place, and it just makes doing business that way a real pleasurable experience. So thank you very much, and to all of the people at Welsh Comer.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, staff report and updates. Anything additional you would like to add?
I would like to make just one comment on relative to the Greensferry Overpass dedication ceremony. I had a couple of questions after the fact, why we did not send out invitations for that. And in our committee meeting prior to that, in our planning committee, we thought about that and decided to not do that because there has been so many people in the community working on this for the last 15 or so years. How do you send out personal invitations to whom? We struggled with that as to who would make the decision, who would be on the list, and we decided, the whole community knows we're going to do this. It's been advertised. Everybody is welcome. It's open to the community. So we didn't send out any invitations. And I hope that answers questions.
Okay, all right. Is that the only update you have
Yes, sir.
on it? Diane, do you have anything to add? Okay, commissioner comments. All quiet today? Got everything answered? Any other comments? I guess I get the last shot at it, and I just once again want to thank everybody for being here and for all the work that's been done over this past year and a half, especially with Greensferry. It's been an unbelievable experience. I've learned a lot from it personally. And I think we just need to remember that this was a community effort, community-wide effort, and the dedication of it to all those who serve others, I think, is extremely appropriate for this bridge that is connecting Post Falls back together again, or at least helping do that. So very proud of it myself, for all of you and for the city of Post Falls. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We are adjourned.